statement is to organize recovery individuals, family and friends into a collective voice to educate the public about the value of recovery from alcohol and other addiction. That is our mission, and we really adhere to that because everybody is, and you know, the voice, allies are the voice of recovery. So we really like to hear from those outside. Okay, so we collaborated and did our own DEI statement. Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery is a voice for all people seeking the benefits of recovery. We are committed to doing the work necessary to address the struggles, inequities diverse groups of people face while seeking recovery services. Systematic racism, prejudice, and bias have been deeply ingrained in the history of the American healthcare system. M.O.A.R is committed to work to create a collective voice for those seeking recovery for all people who have been historically underserved, marginalized, and oppressed. Today's discussion will lead to building an equitable and culturally informed continuum of care to treat substance use disorder and support all recovery pathways. This is a very important topic that I wanted to bring to the Nubian Square and its providers. I wanted to bring, this to the table. So if you have any questions, please do ask them. So I'm really happy that this is taking place.
Good afternoon. My name is Leah Randolph. I am the chair for M.O.A.R DEI, also the executive director and founder of Commonwealth Mental Health and Wellness Center, and the co-chair for M.O.A.R, Massachusetts Black Alcohol and Addictions Council. And as Julie said, it's a really important time for all of us. I think that we're all here with many different questions about many different things that are happening, in the world and especially in the United States right now under the new administration. If there are questions that you have specifically for, what's going to happen in the future, we don't have those answers. But what we do know is that we're a group that's doing community organizing, and that's the best place for us to start, is to be able to provide information to small community-based organizations and individuals that are looking for ways that we can come together with our community that we live in and know very well. We know what the needs are for our community, for our family, and so this meeting is really about that. How can I access a contract with DPH? How can my community-based organization become licensed or certified or incorporated? What are some of the things that I need to do, or we need to do, or I need to let other folks know how to do to be able to strengthen the core base of these community organizations and volunteer organizations that are doing so much to be helpful. So with that, we're going to bring in our presenters, and then once we finish with the presentation, there'll be room for question and answers, and then y'all can eat, okay? Any questions?
Does anyone have a problem with us taking pictures? Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Anybody
so
say
first,
no? That's me. What you got?
Okay.
Get our
So our first presenter is going to be Tyshaun Perryman. Ty is the Community Engagement Liaison for DPH BSAS Recovery for African American Community.
Hello, fabulous people. Right, I'm just trying to give me a second. Let me set my stuff up. I was prepared for any which way the wind blows on. I said, I was prepared to go whichever way the wind blows on having this conversation. The reason why I chose to kind of talk about this right here, identity and substance use treatment recovery within African American community, is because I was down at the Marcus Garvey Recovery Center down here, and someone from the Common Square Community Health Center, one of the addiction specialists, who was a white guy who was just kind of coming in and sharing with us the opportunities presented there at Marcus Garvey, at Common Square. And he asked me, he said, so what does a culturally competent place of recovery look like for black people? And then he said, it's Common Square one, right? And I was like, yeah, Common Square is one, right? Because they got black people there. And then, as I went on, I realized that, hold on, because there's black people there, does not necessarily mean that the place is culturally competent or culturally welcoming, right? So I said, okay, well, let's have a conversation about this, and let's kind of, come up together, as a group, and really talk about what is a welcoming and inclusive type of environment for African Americans. And especially with the climate right now, as far as opioids and the mortality rate for Black African Americans, which is really high right now. And a lot of people are trying to figure out why aren't Black African Americans really connecting and really actually connecting into treatment. What are traditional issues? What's the problem? People are trying to figure out what the problem is. And so I figured that we have a conversation and talk about it. I actually am going to open up the floor. I'm going to ask a question, and you guys can answer. And I think I kind of flow better through question and answer. And then I just want Leah, if you could be mindful of the time for me. I just want to make sure. So the first thing is do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Substance use, treatment, and recovery by most providers traditionally has been a one-size-fits-all model, which is professionally focused treatment followed by long-term involvement in self-help groups. This system was not designed for African Americans. African Americans experience unique factors related to substance use. It thus requires unique treatment recovery pathways and considerations. So the question is, what has been your experience? All right. Queenie.
I know for me, coming into recovery, I have 37 years, 22 days. As a staff, but most people of color, myself included, we don't like leaving our children. That's why Women's Inc. made such an impact in the Roxbury, Boston area, because you were able to bring your children with you and the whole family here. Substance abuse, back in the day, it was a dope fiend. You got arrested, but today it's different. So the pathway of abstinence has changed because there's many pathways to recovery. But the experience of a woman of color coming to treatment was different from what it is today. Thank you.
Okay, so let me try to summarize that a little bit after talking about many moons of being in recovery, right? One of the major issues that plague the African American community as far as treatment and recovery, and that providers should know, is that Black African, we don't want to leave our families. It's challenging to leave the family, especially, you didn't say this, but I'm going to say it, especially if you're a single mom, a single dad, and you're the provider. So going into a long-term acute treatment facility, it's not really something that we can really look forward to or live up to, right? And then let's go to the officer. I forget the rest of what you said.
I believe, and from a person that's not in recovery, but a lot of our family members tend to have mass health. So whatever mass health is going to provide or pay for is what you're left with. Somebody that might have a little bit more money or more affluent might be able to get a specialized treatment, you know, in some other fancy, you know, rehab center. But we're only going to give what mass health tends to provide for that person that has that coverage, I guess.
Yeah, and what's the name, officer?
Joey.
Officer Joey, yeah. Which is kind of why we need to have this type of conversation. And first of all, I just want to say I appreciate Leah and Julie, Katrina who's not here, but you know, I appreciate us being able to, you know, have the space to really touch on these really pertinent, important details, because it's the little things when we talk about, you know, the climate of the times that Leah touched on, and people being afraid, not knowing where they stand at. It's understanding these little things that make us that much more better, stronger, and more cohesive. If we can understand that, hey, listen, you know, a lot of it has to deal with, you know, black people being on Medicaid and not necessarily being able to afford the great services that the for-profit people that have the money can actually afford. Did y'all know that the for-profit treatment world is a $46 billion industry?
And counting.
It is huge. The for-profit treatment world is a $46 billion industry. And there's two dynamics that I just want to tap on. We're going to probably tap on it a little bit later if I have time. Is number one is that black folk traditionally are not able to go into these wonderful settings where you have a queen size bed and you have a coffee maker, and you know you can get on your horse, you can ride horses and jump inside the pool, and you have personal masseuses. Black people, when I was coming up to treatment, I had Boston Cab. And which was, the rooms were cold, and I was in there with the rats, right? Rats, everything inside there, right? So it's a formal morgue. You know, underneath Boston Medical Center is a morgue. It's a hallway where people, you know, where they drive people to the morgue, right? And these are the settings that traditionally most black folk on Medicaid and stuff could afford. And who wants to go through treatment like that? Who recovers like that? Who's welcome like that, right? Let me move on. Leah, how much time is it?
I'll give you 5 minutes.
So what I want to do is talk about, and I'm going to tap on this very lightly, the historical considerations, right? And it says, what historical factors do you know of shape the current state of African American substance use treatment and recovery?
PTSD.
PTSD?
Post-traumatic slave disorder.
What?
Yes.
Post-traumatic slave disorder.
Post-traumatic slave disorder. Right. PTSD, right. You said something? Someone said something. Back.
Hi, my name is Lois, and I'm in long-term treatment. It works for me. I'm 24 years clean and sober and off the streets. I have 4 sons, and since they were little boys, they were in juvenile hall, and then they became men, and they started going to prison. And this was all their lives, from kids to men adults. And the thing was that my anger was that the judge, the lawyers, and the prosecutors were always letting them go. Letting them go, in and out, all their lives. One is 50 now, one's 49, one's 37, one's 38. He passed away, coming out of jail. So the thing is,
they get out with no treatment and they're in complete denial. And I've always called and talked to these people, the lawyers, the judges and all of them. They don't listen to the parents or the people out in the streets, but they'll listen to the judges. They'll listen to the lawyers if there's an ultimatum. But they've always told me, oh, they need to want help for themselves. This is still what they say. Oh, how old is your son? Oh, he's 37? Well, he's a grown man. He's a grown man. But they've never given any of those boys any education. And the one who they're scared of is the judge. And he's the one who can have them sent to these programs or to a detox or to a halfway house when they get out of prison. But it was never done because they don't come out of their mouths saying, oh, I'm an addict, I need help. Oh, I'm homeless, I need help. Right. Because they're in denial about their mental health and their brain damage and their alcoholism and their drug addiction.
Right.
So they let them right back out into the streets.
Right. So thank you for that. Right. So and that's why we're here, and that's why I said every detail, everything we discuss is very important. And we're trying to figure out, where does that come from? Is it something that just the judges, the prosecutors, is it the thought process behind locking them up and letting them out? Is it something that just came out the air, or is there some historical context that we could say, okay, well, this might be the prevailing thought behind why they do such things? And as a group, collectively, how do we work to change? How do we work to change the mindset towards supporting our black men in recovery, which specifically talking about your boys, that's what I'm saying, black men. Supporting our black men in recovery, and how to be more effective. How to be more effective in supporting black folks in recovery. This picture right here is, because we're going all the way back to the motherland, right? We're going all the way back to West Africa. And this picture right here is a picture of what's called millet. And so I didn't do too much research on, West African or African society and addiction. From what I understand, that it's pretty typical, right? It was pretty typical. People drink for celebrations, they drink for rites of passages, pretty much like most cultures around the world, right? That was the consumption, the alcohol use. But when we transfer over and we get into the United States and we talk about the slave codes and how slave owners would use the substances as a means of control, we talk about two opposite systems that actually from back in those days up until now, the ideology, the thought process is still pretty much the same. When we talk about limited slaves' access to alcohol, control the growing caricature of the violent drunken slave. So pretty much one of the strategies that they used was to limit the consumption and use of alcohol for slaves, because if you were a drunken slave, then the caricature is that you were a violent slave, right? And the slave owners did not want for you to be, for the slaves to be hurting them, right? So they painted this picture that, hey, listen, these people, once they get under their influence, they are violent, unruly, and it goes back to part of the slave codes that men was just, that black people was just three-fifths of a person. So they use substance addiction to kind of reinforce these things. And then the other piece is encouraging bouts of binge drinking was believed to pacify potentially rebellious slaves. So they kind of say, okay, well, we can incentivize you, right? You can drink during holidays and things like that. And this, means to say, okay, if you are working hard, if you're a good slave, right, we'll let you drink, right? But the other piece of that, the other diabolical end of this, is that the consumption of alcohol addiction, they wanted the slaves to actually consume the drink and become drunken, right? And then around this time is when you had Frederick Douglass, who was like one of the most prominent figures of a person who of addiction in the Black temperance movement, because he was saying, hey, listen, if you are under the influence, if you are drinking, if you're not practicing temperance, then you can't fight the powers that be, right? If you're under the influence, then you can't stand up for your rights. Then you can't be. Then you can't talk with a sober, clear mind. And so a lot of times it was like a contradiction, because they wanted black people, black slaves, to drink so that they would be intoxicated and not stand up and fight the powers or know their rights. And so we can see this, the same concept, the same type of ideology when we talk about the war on drugs, right? And the war on drugs is when black people are disproportionately more likely to be arrested for substance-related crime than white people, right? And we see that during this time with the war on drugs, unlike now with opioid epidemic, where things is a public health crisis, right? Because it affects more white people within suburban areas. We see that with the war on drugs politically, they created this thing that black people, when they use substances, especially crack, cocaine, alcohol, that black people were criminals, right? The same deviant type mindset about the slaves is the same deviant mindset that they had with the war on drugs. And these are all our politicians. It wasn't one group of Democrats or one group of Republicans. It was all of them saying that we need to lock these people up. I was in prison in North Carolina for substance addiction, right? And when I was in there was a guy that was doing 14 years for a bump, a dime rob. Part of this oppressive thought, ideology of the war on drugs. Black communities often have greater access to alcohol vendors than any other racial ethnic community. Is that not the same thing that was happening there, where they want you to be consumed of alcohol and different substances, crack to be prevalent running through our communities? Because so that if we do have liquor stores, whether it was, some people say, oh, that's not by design, it's just that there's more people so we can put more liquor stores. But what happens when there's more liquor stores inside of our community, right? There's more crime, right? There's more dysfunction, there's more behavioral health issues, right? Black people are not having problems going to mental health providers and doctors, so they're looking to pacify the need and go to where? To the liquor store, right? And then we could buy liquor at very young ages, because we give someone $1 or something like that, and they'll go to the store and buy the liquor for us. So then we're, at young ages, we're becoming we're becoming messed up, right? Our communities. So we can say that, that the prevalence of alcohol and substance within the Black African American community is somewhat by design. It's somewhat by design to keep us from, remember, if we're not sober-minded, if we're under the influence, if we're addicted to these substances, then we're not clear enough to stand up and fight for our rights and understand and read books and what have you, right? I think we might need to go to part 2, because I ain't even get anywhere. But I do want to be mindful of time. Okay, let me try to speed up just a little bit here. tap on some high points and then, yes.
I think it's also very important when you talk about how we get here, and we talk about trauma where we need to stay, where we need to address this thing.
Right.
At the bottom line is we just constantly keep focusing on substances. We are not really addressing the true problem. Because
Right.
the reality is, by the time we get here, we already have tried 99 other different things to make ourselves feel better. It's
Right.
only this one that gives us the capacity to numb out. But the reality and the motivation is to alleviate or numb out our pain.
Right.
I think that we always miss the point, or we can miss the point of really what's going on before here and how we get here.
Right, because
You
so,
can address the substance use, but then you're gonna have the gambling, then you're gonna have the other people. And people need a form of pain to address or react to
Right.
their emotional pain.
right, because we know, thank you for that, because we know that addiction is only a symptom of the problem. Addictive is everything that lies underneath the iceberg, given the iceberg metaphor, right? It's everything that lies underneath that actually is the problem. And so what I want to do is I'm going to talk about that piece, and then I will pause, and then at the end of Jim Tracy's presentation, if we want to open up the floor again, we have time, then we'll do that. I'm going to skip all this and just go to this right here. Devaluation. Right? And I'm going to tell y'all, as someone that has born and raised with all the, what they call childhood ACEs, right? At first childhood experiences. It's like this criteria that's set up that lets you know that you have these, if you fit this criteria, then more than likely throughout some point in your lifetime, you're going to become addicted to substances. And I fit them all. You know, that means I was mentally and physically abused as a child. That means that I was neglected, I was abandoned. Anything you could think of as a child, I was that, right? Born into a substance addicted environment, generational trauma, where my grandmother to my grandfather to my aunts and uncles and everybody were aunts and uncles, mother, papa, were all addicted to substances. So I grew up inside of all that. So when we talk about devaluation, one of the major issues that, especially that I believe that most providers should be aware of, is the trauma that comes from the Black African American community, right? And devaluation is one of those kind of like subconscious conflicts that we have. It's kind of diabolical in a way, because we actually, a lot of times we don't know that we're coming in. Our culture a lot is chronically cool, right? We're chronically cool. We like to wear the shades, the hip hop, the music, the dancing, and things like that, right? That we don't actually, we utilize kind of like material things, right? Like Langston Hughes talk about, but he who wrote "We Wear the Mask," right? We utilize material things to mask up the pain and trauma that we're actually going through on the inside. And so when we walk into treatment facilities, the providers should know that most of the time, especially that people are coming with this feeling of degradation of one's dignity. They're coming with a loss of dignity, a loss of respect, a loss of innocence, right? How many times we walk inside the store and, you know, it's almost like you might not say it, you gotta walk around with your head up and everything, but you feel like eyes are on you, people trying to watch to see if you're gonna steal, right? And so we don't get the benefit of a doubt. We don't get the benefit of a doubt a lot of times in the courtrooms, right? A lot of times in the courtrooms, they're more likely to send a white person to treatment and are more likely to send a black person to lockup. right? So we're not getting the benefit of the doubt. This is devaluation. With, freedom, mobility, the ability just to be free and to be ourselves, right? The last piece I want to talk about is how do we counteract this devaluation? How do we, because we don't want to just stay stuck here, right? Because we got everybody in this room. We have the Nubian Square Task Force. We have Marcus Garvey. We have Step Rocks. There's so much stuff happening across the United States for Black African Americans in recovery. The fact that BSAS is I'm here community engagement, which my work is to kind of work with BIPOC populations to support them with technical assistance and understanding how to navigate our system and stuff like that, support them with creating awareness of grants and kind of liaison, being that standing in the gap between the community and BSAS. The fact that we're able to do this says that changes are taking place. Changes are taking place. And one thing that we need to do, let me see if I can get a slide, then I'm done. Let's just go there. One thing we need to do is really, as if there's treatment providers or recovery coaches or people that are in service of Black people, is really validating the Black experience, right? Really validating and really creating a sense of agency for Black people. Letting them know that, hey, listen, y'all know how it goes. You're Black, you're Black, you're beautiful. It doesn't matter that you are suffering from this addiction, right? As much as it matters that you have the self-efficacy, the power to overcome it, right? You have the power to manage the issues that are inside of you, and we're here to support you and bring you and help support you and bring you clarity. So helping and supporting Black African Americans utilizes hope, instills purpose, cultural expression, joy, advocacy, and spirituality, while also acknowledging the role that intergenerational trauma, justice, freedom, and community plays in the recovery process. So it's not denial or whatever that stuff is happening that you've been afflicted, that there is structural racism. It's not denying that, but we're saying that we're gonna acknowledge it, but we're gonna continue to instill hope and purpose within you, right? Places African American people in recovery in a strength-based, supportive, validating, and culturally appropriate setting. A real frontal assault on devaluation. Where you go to, like places like I remember one time I went to I'm not gonna say too much, but I went to one of Leah's offices. I'm gonna say like that. And the first thing I said was, "This is a culturally competent environment." Right? And she said, "Yeah, look at it, Ty, right? Because the walls, the floors were beautiful. I'm just saying beautiful, right? The floors were nice. The paintings on the walls were nice. The paint on the walls was nice. The couches were comfortable. The people, the workers came downstairs and they greeted you and they talked to you, right? These are the things that we need for African Americans in recovery. If you go to Torchlight, you go in there and you look at this beautiful setting. You see a clean kitchen. And y'all already know, mama's not playing if you don't have a clean kitchen, right? And you go in there, first thing you see, you walk in there, you see an open floor and a clean kitchen, right? So it's a beautiful thing. So with that being said, I'm gonna wrap up right here. There's so much more I wanted to go into, as always, but I just have a question. I just have one question, because I know we had a lot of people that came in late, but was this something that y'all wanted to hear? Is it something that you would want to learn more about?
Absolutely.
So a couple of things is, number one, I didn't have enough copies, but I sent a copy of my paper, scholarly article, which is on the Black African American Recovery Museum. And you can read that paper, but also go look up the Black African American Recovery Museum. It covers topics, broken down topics from trauma to also famous people that are in recovery to so much more. Please go look that up, and hopefully, not hopefully, but I'll be looking forward to doing more meetings. The last thing is that for BSAS, we are starting our community office hours March 24th. At the last Monday of each month, we'll be doing office hours. So if you have any questions regarding procurements and grants and information, we're gonna ask that you show up, and we also will be having guest speakers.
Where?
I'll be sending the information out. It's gonna be on Zoom. It's gonna be on Zoom, but you guys will all get the information. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony.